beyond your tears. There is a dream bigger than all you can feel. 'Cause love listens. Just call his name.
Right. He said, love listens. He's always there. Just call his name. Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to today's session of Truly Foundation and A Course in Miracles, where we share advanced spirituality and a whole lot of love. And hi, I am Oliver, and I am your host for today. I will be your temporary guide, your temporary coach. I will be your friend along this journey. Though I'm sitting here seemingly, and you're sitting there seemingly, in reality, we are joined as one. We are oneness joined as one, as the Course tells us. And so, even as much as you are a student or listener to these workbook lessons, so am I. And so we are on an equal footing and equal plane. There is no highs and lows. There's no ins and out. There's only the heart of God, and that's where we all reside. And that is what we all share. I'm talking from a place of reality here. And so I am delighted to be here today for workbook lesson 256. And there are some, this is an awesome idea that we're going to share today. And it is but a return to one of our common themes. One of the common theme, or the common theme in A Course in Miracles, and that is forgiveness. We have said it many times on this platform in these lessons, that forgiveness is the means and is the only means by which we activate God's plan for salvation, not only in our life, but in the lives of others. It is through forgiveness, and not just forgiveness as we have learned it or as it is shared in the world or as it is practiced on a very low vibrational level, but we're talking about the Jesus kind of forgiveness. We're talking about the forgiveness that the Course has made it absolutely clear that it is indeed the means by which we return to sanity. It is the means by which we return to the place that we have never left. It is the means by which all dreams are dissolved. It is the means by which the entire universe will disappear. And when the entire universe disappears, the only thing is left is reality. So we will never get away from the practice of forgiveness. We'll never get away from this is a course in forgiveness. We'll never get away from it. As long as you think or appear to be here in this place, to be here, then forgiveness will be your greatest asset. Your greatest asset. Forgiveness can do what money can't buy. Forgiveness can do what nothing in this world can do. There is no material matter. There is no idea, man-made idea, that can transcend the meaningfulness of how God has, in his wisdom, allowed something as simple, something that is so simple, and something that is completely available to everyone, to be the only means by which we can activate the only means by which we can return, the only means by which we can correct our error is through forgiveness. The Course brand of forgiveness, the Jesus brand of forgiveness, not the stuff that we have heard and been trained and conditioned by that don't hold water. And so, as you can see, I am on my game today. I'm feeling myself today. Yes, I am. Why? Because when you've been released from everything, when you have released yourself from everything, the only thing that remains is the will of God. The only thing that remains is the truth. And so I'm making a joyful noise unto reality. And I'm here to serve with gladness. I'm here to enter into the gates with thanksgiving and into the courts with praise. And I'm glad you joined me today. And so we're going to get started here. So today's idea, workbook lesson 256, is another grand idea, and it states like this. It says, God is the only goal I have today. I'm going to say it again. It says God is. Anytime we see these two words side by side, God is, we can really stop right there. We can completely just stop right there because we've said all that there is to say. God is. This is a good combination of words to have in your awareness that can be a catch-all phrase for everything. For everything. And now that my earth angels now that my earth angel from Salt Lake City has entered into this space, all is complete. So hello, Heidi. But this is great, really. I mean, when we understand the all-encompassing meaning of God is, we can do away with a lot of the phrases and words we have in our vocabulary and just rely on that, because when we say God is, we have said everything. We have said it all. Because in reality, there is nothing else. God is, and there is nothing else. And there is a lesson that we covered. I think it's lesson 167. See if I can't find it, so you won't think I'm making this up. It could be 168. Okay, here it is. Yeah, workbook lesson 168. If you're following along with me in the blue book, it's in the text portion of the book. No, it's in the workbook for students portion of the book. I'm sorry. And it's on page 323. In paragraph 5, in sentence 1, it reads like this. This is workbook lesson 169. I apologize. Workbook lesson 169. On page 323. And the title of that lesson is By Grace I Live, by Grace I Am Released. Paragraph 5, sentence 1, and it reads like this. It says, oneness is simply the idea that God is. See? Oneness simply is the idea that God is. And remember, oneness is all encompassing. Oneness is reality. So it says oneness is simply the idea that God is. So when we use the phrase God is, we're saying that oneness is all that there is. There is not two-ness or three-ness or four-ness, but there's only the one. There's only the one source. There's only the one creation. There's only the one life, the one being, the one love, the one reality, the one self. And in that encompasses all things, including you and me, and all living things. So in reality, there's only the one, and we all share in that oneness. That's why I keep saying equality is a must. Where you are concerned, I am concerned, and God is concerned. Where there is no equality, there is no oneness. Where there is no equality, there is no love. That's why the writer over in the New Testament of the Bible in Philippians says that's the mind that we are to have, the mind of Christ, and that we are to allow this reality of our oneness with God, our equality with God. He said we are to allow this mind to be our mind, because it's really the only mind. He said, let this mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus, the one mind. He said you got to let it be, because it is your mind too. It's not just Jesus' mind. He says yours too. He said in this mind that Jesus operated in, he said, been in the form of God. He thought it not robbery to be equal or to have equality with God. Jesus didn't think he was taking anything away from God's glory by saying, I have equality with God. And we need to come to that realization if we are going to experience our own reality. It is in that, it is in the knowing, it is in the acceptation of that, it is in the embracing of that, and it is in the abiding of that. Therein lies our peace. You cannot have peace outside of the mind of Christ. You cannot have the peace not knowing that you have equality with your Father. You have equality with all humanity and all living things. There is no peace outside of that Christ mind. So Paul got that revelation and he put it in the book of Philippians in the New Testament. This is a revelation from God. This was really a direct message from God that Paul got. And you don't hear many teachers of scripture talking about this particular passage of scripture. Why? Because it seems so what? It seems so impossible. You really mean that this is true? It can't be any other way. It cannot be any way. Where there is inequality, there is no oneness. Where there is inequality, there is no love. Just look in your own just look in your own relationships, even in the natural. Where there's no where there's no equality, there's what? There's chaos, there's strife and division. We know that in God there is no chaos. In God there is no confusion. In God there is no fear. So we have to embrace this reality that we have this treasure of the Christ mind in earthen vessels, as he said in Corinthians. That's what Jesus meant when he said, if anyone ever find this treasure, they will go and sell everything. Why? Because it is everything. And what is that treasure he's talking about? It is the revelation. It is the awareness of who we really are and where we really are and why we really are. And that we have full access to everything that God has access to. We got full access to everything that Jesus had access to. We have full access. There is nothing missing. There is nothing held back from us in creation. In fact, Paul said it again. He said, we are complete. We are complete in him. Meaning there's nothing missing, nothing broken in our reality. Even in this mind, he says, so let this mind be in you that was also in Christ. Philippians 2, 5, and 6. Who thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Anytime in the natural, when you call someone your father, what you're saying is you have equality with them. meaning you have the same life that they have. You share the same being that they are. You are the very offspring. You are the extension of them in the natural. There's a passage of scripture in one of the Gospels where the religious people picked up stone to stone him, to stone Jesus, because Jesus was calling God his Father. When you call someone your father, what you're saying is that you are one with them. That as they are, so are you. And so back in creation, when God extended itself, because that's what love does. Love what? Extends itself. Love gives. That's just the nature. That's the essence. It just continuously gives. It continuously extends. It continuously expresses itself. And never at the same level, but it's a constant expression. The Bible said we go from glory to glory. You say, Oliver, you really, you're really going deep today. No, this is shallow stuff. This is shallow stuff. So when the religious folks heard Jesus call God his Father, they said he was blaspheming. Because they understood in their culture that when you call someone your father, you're saying that you have equality with them. It's in scripture. So they said, this is why we're after you, man, because you are making yourself equal with God. And Jesus said, I am. And not only I am, you are. I'm going to find that and share that. Just in case y'all think I'm making this up, right? So when we say God is, we're saying what? We don't have to say anything else. When we're operating in this mind, that is the one mind. And so back to paragraph 5, it says oneness is simply the idea that God is. Simply. No, not that. It is a simple idea. And we think it's astounding. It says, and in God's being, in God's self, okay, in God's self, in God's being, in the essence of God, it says that God encompasses all things. So there's nothing that is outside of God. That's why when you say God is, you're saying all is in one and one is in all. You're saying that there is nothing but one. That is what you're saying. God is. He encompasses, or it encompasses all things. Paul got another revelation in the New Testament when he said this, which we was saying the same thing. I can't remember whether it's Ephesians or Colossians, but he said what? All things have been what? Reconciled back unto God. He said everything that seemed to be separate from God has been reconciled back into God. So he was saying the same thing here, that all things, what? God encompasses all things. Paul said it a different way. He said all things been reconciled back into God. Because the idea is that there was a separation, which we know from the course that there's never been a separation. And so he was talking just from a limited view there, not the complete perfect view, but he was saying it's all now been reconciled. That God was reconciling the whole world back into himself. That's what Paul said. In other words, he was waking everybody up from the dream of separation so that they can realize what there's only the one. That's what Paul was saying. And so it says, God encompasses all things. Oneness encompasses all things. God is the idea of God encompasses all things. Or we can say love encompasses all things. I like to use the word love sometimes to substitute for God, because first of all, the Bible said that God is love. Right? God is not, God don't love. Love is not an aspect of God, but it says God is love itself. It's love itself. And remember, this course says that love is not something that can be defined, but love is always present. Why? Because God is always present. Because that which is all encompassing is always present. It says no mind holds anything in reality but love. No mind holds in reality anything but love. It says we say, notice now, it says we say God is. Notice, it says we say God is, and then we cease to speak. Why? Because we didn't say it all. We included it all when we say God is. So that's why we're saying this is a good phrase to have in your vocabulary. In fact, this is all the phrase you really need to respond to anything that God is. And it's a catch-all phrase. Here it says, God, we say God is, and then we cease to speak. For in that, in what? In the knowledge that God is, oneness, that God is all encompassing. It says, in this knowledge, he said, for in this awareness, for in this knowing, words become meaningless. Anything you add to it. It's like when you say I am, we really need to stop there. Because anything else we add to I am, it says they are meaningless, because you've said it all when you said I am. You've said it all when you said God is. Why do you think you say I am more than any two words in your speech? Because that is coming from your nature. That is coming from your essence. You can't help yourself. That is your awareness. That is your self-awareness. That is your infinite self speaking. That is your impersonal self expressing, I am. That's what God said. Tell Pharaoh, when you get there, Moses, tell him that I am sent you. That I am sent you. He didn't say anything else. Just tell him I am sent you. He could have said, just tell him God is. Or just tell him oneness sent you. Or just tell him love sent you. All of these are synonymous. All these are communicating the same one grand idea that we all share in this grand love, the one love that is. And he said that when we express, when we communicate on that level of vibration, there's nothing else to be said. He said words are what becomes what? He says words are meaningless. We don't need any more words. But we like to talk. He says there are no lips to speak these words. He said there are no lips to speak any other word, because that's all the word there is in reality. He said, and no part of the mind that is sufficiently distinct to feel that it is now aware of something not itself. It said even the mind, when it hears God is, or oneness, or I am, it said even the mind releases all other. There's nothing else to say. There's nothing else to think. There's nothing else to perceive. It says, it has united with its source. The lips have united with the source. The mind has united with its source by simply saying God is. By simply saying I am. It has united with its source. So when you say I am or God is, you have united with your source. And then finally, in sentence 7, here's the conclusion. It says, and like its source, the mind like its source, the lips like its source, everything likes its source. Everything is like its source. It says, and like its source itself, it merely is. That's it. When we say God is, when we say I am, we have said it all, and we can cease to speak. So we need to learn and practice this and use this in some of these situations and circumstances and conditions where we just get them running off at our mouth. When all there needs to be said is God is. That's it. Respond that way to someone that's trying to challenge you or judge you or convince you that you're something that you're not. Just say God is. And see the response. Or just say, I am, and see the response. Not only will you cease to speak, they will too. So the conclusion of all this is what? We merely are. Oh, we merely is. There's nothing else to say. We are who we are. We are the creation of God. And that can never change. Your identity can never change. This whole world is scrambling. This whole world is in such a tizzy because of a lack of true identity. When the identification crisis is over, once we have embraced the reality of our oneness, once we have embraced the Christ vision, the Christ mind, once that is finally settled, there will be only peace, only joy, only happiness. So it's only going to come through the knowing of the truth. It's not going to come through politics. It's not going to come through religion. It's not going to come through the arts or sports or science. It's not going to come any other way than through the knowing of the truth. And that's why Truly Foundation is here. We're laying the foundation for the truth that is true always. We're here for no other reason. For your awakening, for your recognition of who you are. All right, let me get back to today's lesson before I get carried away. Back to lesson 256, which is our lesson for today. And so the idea for today, now I'm going to make a whole lot more it's going to make you so much happier. It says God is the only goal. It's the only reason. It's the only meaning. It's the only purpose I have for today. Because it is all encompassing. It is the only. God is the only goal I have for today. In fact, it's the only goal that we have for any day. Because God is, and there is nothing else. So to try to go and find something other than the love that we share, to go and try to be something other than the one being and the one life and then one love that we share, to go and do that after knowing this, of course, said it's insanity. You say, well, it's insanity. And that's not a judgment. It is just, it is just a way to put it to get our attention. Yeah, it's insanity. When you know the truth, then you see that this whole world appeared to be an insane asylum. Only from a dream-like perspective. Because even we know that what we're looking at through these perceptual eyes and these perceptual ears is only an illusion. So really, the proper response is to laugh. Like the Course says, don't take this world so serious. He said that was the problem in the beginning, when we forgot to laugh at the tiny mad idea of separation. But it's never too late to laugh, so laugh now. You laugh at yourself. You laugh at the preposterous idea that we're not joined as one. You can laugh now at the preposterous idea that there is a beginning and an end to us. You can laugh at the preposterous idea that we can change ourselves into something that God created, that we can undo what love has done. It's impossible. And that's good news. And so God is the only goal that we have today. Oh man. So we welcome that. We embrace that. Boom. No resistance from me. Even as you go about your day and whatever you decide to do in your day, because you can decide that. You can decide it. Why? Because you have the freedom to. Whatever you're doing, and whoever you're doing it with, and wherever you're doing it at, it doesn't matter. You realize that God is the goal. That love that you are is always shining. That peace that you are is shining in you now, regardless of what you're doing. So whether you're eating or drinking or playing or singing or dancing or shopping, or it doesn't matter. You realize with this mind now, this Christ vision, that the love is always shining, that you are the God is, that you are the I am, and everything around you. And so it says, the way to God. Notice now, the way to God as though we are apart from God. So this you gotta see this here. It's speaking to the mind that thinks it's separated. But I'm going to change it here by saying the way to experience God. Because there is no distance. This journey that we appear to be on is a journey without a distance, as the Course says. Why? Because we remain in the heart of God. We remain as God created us. So there is no distance. There's only oneness. See, in oneness, there is no distance. In oneness, there's no time, there's no space, there's no form, there's no limitations. There's a boundless, endless, expansive, infinite, impersonal, and self-aware awareness that is what? Aware of itself. Boy, how did that come out like that? I couldn't say that again if I tried. And so the way to experience God is through forgiveness here. It says the way to God, or the way to experience God, because God is not separate and apart from us. He said the way to experience God is through forgiveness here. Notice now, the way to experience God here, when it's talking about here, is talking about the fact that we are, if you are hearing me, that means that you still have some attachment to this body, mind world. That's why we're still here. We still have some business to take care of. That's why we're still here. So it's talking about the way to experience God here, even though we are awake within this here, because we have recognized who we are in reality. And so we have awakened from the dream of separation. And we no longer give credence to that. We understand that there is nothing but the one. That we one with God, we one with all humanity and all living things. And so we are, and we have embraced the reality that we have equality with God. And that there's only one will, and that's the will of God. And we have accepted these realities as our very own. But we're still here. So it says here that the way to experience God is through forgiveness as long as you're here. In other words, you and I, as long as we are in this three-dimensional horizontal space and experience, that we will always be practicing forgiveness. Because that's the only way. It says here, it's just the only way. It is the way that we experience being here and being there. Heaven and earth have become one. And so the way you experience that here is through forgiveness. In other words, we will always be practicing forgiveness as long as we're here. Your last forgiveness lesson is when you're no longer here. You know that you finished your forgiveness lessons when you're no longer here. So again, forgiveness will never be separate from our experience here. It is the greatest gift of all. It is the way that God set up the plan for salvation for all humanity. It's the way that God have set up the plan to wake up all humanity to the reality of their true identity. It's through forgiveness. Not money, not things, not possessions, not your personality, not history. None of this. Forgiveness. And it simply means we forgive, meaning we are forgiving. We are forgiving up. We are for releasing one perception for another. We release the perception or the idea of separation. We give that up for the one reality of oneness. There is no separation. So forgiving or forgiveness is simply giving up the idea of illusions for the idea of reality, giving up the unreal for the real. You cannot serve two masters. He said, Jesus said it. You will love one and hate the other. We are here to do thy will, O God, meaning there's only one will. But we're free to what? Participate anywhere we want in any other thing. Because we're still what? In the one will of God. Everything. It is all encompassing, almost like God is. Not quite, because just remember, forgiveness is only needed here. There is no need for forgiveness in heaven. Why? There's nothing to forgive. And so we're learning how to apply heaven on earth by saying there's nothing to forgive. That which I thought my brother did to me, he has not done. So there's nothing to forgive. There's no grievance to hold. There's no axe to grind. Not only forgiving ourselves, but we forgive all humanity. We forgive the world for us trying to make the world something that is not. We forgive everything. Therein lies your freedom. Therein lies your experience of God is. It's in forgiveness. You never, ever stop practicing forgiveness as long as you're here or think that you're here. That is your trump card. That is your what? That's your bus ticket. That's your plane ticket. Don't leave home without it. You can leave home without your American Express, but don't leave home without the Jesus brand and the course brand of forgiveness. Therein lies your peace, your joy, your happiness. Therein lies the freedom of the world. It says, there is no other way. See, I'm not making this up. That's what the Course says. There is no other way. He said, there is no other way to experience God other than through forgiveness. There's no other way to experience love unless you let go of everything else and understand that what love is all there is, that God is all there is. And that you are part of that. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, Heidi, you don't want a two-way ticket. You want a one-way ticket. And so it says, there is no other way. If sin, notice now, because we know the Course says there is no sin. But it says, if sin had not been cherished, if the idea of sin or separation hadn't been cherished, and it was cherished by all of us at one point, you wouldn't be here if at some point you didn't cherish the idea of separation. That's basically what sin is. You wouldn't be here if you didn't at some point cherish the idea of a false self, a limited self, a self that is born and a self that dies. You wouldn't be here if at some point you didn't cherish the things in this world. It says, so if sin had not been cherished, or if the idea of it had not been cherished by the mind, notice now, by the mind. What mind? The ego mind, not the mind of Christ, because the mind of Christ, there is no sin consciousness, there is no guilt, there is no fear. But by this mind that we made up, if the mind that we made up had not at some point cherished the idea of separation or sin, guilt, and fear, it says, what need would there have been to find the way to where you are? There wouldn't be any. The only reason that there is a need to find the way is because at some point we cherished the whole idea of separation. We cherished the whole idea of a personal self. We cherished the whole idea of inequality. We cherished the whole idea of impermanence. We cherish the whole idea of multiplicity, when in reality there's only oneness. So we were spellbound. We were hallucinating. We were in vain imaginings. We were fantasizing. What would it be like to be separate? What would it be like to be individuated? We were using the power. We were using the source, the only source there is, to play with the idea, to toy with the idea. What if God held something back from us? What if there's something outside of our true self? What if God don't have our best interests at heart? Oh, we toyed with all these thoughts and ideas and we took them serious and fell into a trance. And all kind of ideas, all kind of dreaming took place then. He says, who would still be uncertain if we hadn't what? Entertained or cherished these ideas? Where would uncertainty be? There would be no uncertainty. It says, who could be unsure of who he is? There would not be an identity problem. Everyone would know who they are. But yeah, as you can see, still in the trance, in the dream, the majority of people don't know who they are. Still, the majority of the 8 billion people on this planet have no idea who they are. That's why you see what you see that we're creating or miscreating or mismaking. So who could be unsure of who he is? We're only unsure of who we are because we entertain, we cherish the idea of being something else. And who would yet remain asleep? Would the world remain asleep if it's not still what? Toying with the idea and cherishing the idea of separation, sin, guilt, and fear, inequality, inferiority. God is up here and we're down here. That's inferiority complex. That's not a reality. That's part of the ego thought system to tell you who you're not. And we cherish the idea. You look all through history, all through recorded history. That's what it's really been about, our identity. That's what it was about in the story of the prodigal son. That is what it was about in the story as it is written, because it's just a story, it's an allegory. In the story of Adam and Eve, that's what was if you really understood what that is saying, that was at the root of the problem. Their identification. And it's what has caused all of us to stumble and fumble. It is what is at the root of all of us, that had called all of us to suffer, all of us to have a poor self-image of ourselves. Identification. So this is a course in identification. This is a course in self-image. This is a course in mind training. This is a course in transformation. This is a course in miracles. And that is the miracle, when we shift our perception, when we shift our understanding from the falsity of who we thought we were to the reality of who we are. That's the miracle. And it's the most natural thing that can happen. That is our natural inheritance. This is our natural state of being. And so, and who would yet remain asleep in heavy, notice now how I describe our sleeping state, in heavy clouds of doubt about the holiness of ourself, whom God created sinless. We are holy. That word holy means that we are whole and complete. We are the holy home of God. Even Paul picked up on the revelation in Ephesians chapter 1 when he said, before the foundation of the world, God had preordained that we should be holy and without blame before him in love. In other words, that we are the sinless ones. We are the pure ones. All of us, all humanity, all that he created, and he created all of us. So all of us remain as God created us. But when we cherish the idea, when we play with it, toy with it, we end up in sin, consciousness, guilt, and fear. And there's only one way out. Forgiveness. When we realize, oh my God, I'm not a sinner and I didn't sin. I just made an error. I just made a mistake. And guess what? Mistakes and error can be what? They can be corrected. They can be corrected. This is a course in correction. It's a course in correction. That's simple. There's no judgment. There's no unloving thoughts or ideas. No, it's course correction because reality has remained unaffected by our little journey, our little dream journey, our little hallucinations, our vain imaginings and our fantasies. Reality hadn't changed one iota. When you go to sleep at night and you fall into a dream that may be a little nightmarish, nothing in your physical environment has changed. You're laying in your bed, you're safe, you're in your home. But to you, in that moment, you're falling off the edge of the building, or you're being chased by a tiger, lion, or bear. You know, all of the vain imaginings that we come up with in dreams. But in reality, nothing has changed. Likewise, when this whole dramatic scene of a world of separation came into being in the dream, heaven remained intact. Love remained intact. God remained intact. And you remained intact. It's like going to watch a movie. You go and watch a movie, what? To be entertained. You go to watch a movie to be entertained. But when the movie is over, what do? You put your Coke and your Sprite and your M&Ms and your popcorn down on the floor. Y'all know y'all do that. Come on now. And you get up and you walk out. You say, hey, I was entertained. It was a good movie. You don't walk out and think that what was in the movie is in your world. That's your world. That's reality. No. So we are here now. Now that we're here, God said, entertain yourself as much as you please, but don't forget who you are. Don't forget who you are. Don't try to substitute the movie, the dream, the error, the mistake. Don't try to substitute it for reality. He said, you will not be happy. So love is not even opposed to you having a little fun. Love is not opposed to you having fun. In fact, you should have more fun than anyone when you wake up. It's called a happy dream, right? So it says, heavy clouds of doubt about your wholeness. when we cherish the idea. Here we can but dream. See, here, that's all we can do. Here we can but dream. But we can dream. We have forgiven ourselves, in whom all sin remains impossible. You see that? It's impossible for you to be associated with that whole concocted idea of sin. It is impossible. You would be saying that God is a sinner. And we know that's not possible. It's not possible for you. Why? Because you and God are one. You and God share the same, just like all of us here in this plane share the same air space. We breathe the same air. In reality, we share the same life. We share the same being that God is, the same being that you are, the same awareness and the same consciousness that you are aware of. It's the same awareness that God is. I mean, that's why God knows everything about you. Why? Because you know everything about yourself. There's nothing to hide. That's why he said there's nothing to hide. Why? Because every thought, everywhere, every idea that you experience, God experiences. Why? Because you and God are one. So there's nothing to hide. Absolutely nothing. So you can walk freely in the spirit, as he says, in the recognition. To walk in the spirit is to walk in the recognition that what? Nothing can separate me from the love of God. Nothing can separate me. Nothing in this world, no heights, no depth, no things present, no things to come, not things in, out, up, down, in. It don't matter. Nothing, absolutely positively nothing can separate you or anyone from God's love. Why? Because it's impossible. He says it right here. He said it remains impossible. And it is this that we choose. And it is this that we choose. What? The impossibility of ever having any level of inequality with our Father. This we can be sure of. This is what we choose. And this is what we dream. This is our dream. This is the happy dream. So you can never ever, and you have never ever been without God. You have never ever been without love. You have never ever been separated. You haven't fallen. You haven't, none of these things that we've been taught. You are the real deal. You are the God is and the I am all in one. That is who you really are. I'm here to tell you that is who you are. And when you get to the point that you forgive or you release yourself from all the other falsities that you have embraced along the way, then you'll begin to experience that love that he talks about. He says the only way is to release all of the falsity. God is our goal. We don't have a choice. Now that we understand this, we don't have a choice because God is. And there's nothing else. It's all encompassing. We are a part of this all encompassing. You are the all encompassing. They talk about intellectual property here. And, we talk about that. Basically, our intellectual property is what we know. But really, our intellectual property is who we are. It has more value than what you could ever know. Who you are, that's your true identity. That's your true self. That's the real you who loves you. Why? Because the real you is love. That's your intellectual property. And it is priceless. It is absolutely unlimited. It is eternal. It is infinite. There is no opposite or opposition. There is no threat. There is no attack. It is signed, it is sealed, and it's unchangeable. You are the unchangeable one. You are the unaltered one. Not only you, but all humanity. And your feelings will line up with that. Your thinking will line up with that. Your perceptions will line up with that. Once you embrace that reality for not only yourself, but for all humanity, there is no exception. None. So when you see seemingly others in a separate body or in a separate personal identity, don't see them as separate. See them as yourself. So what would you give to yourself? So what you would give to yourself, give to yourself, give to your brother, because your brother is yourself. That's what Jesus meant when he said what? There's only two. There's only one law, but there's two aspects of it. He said, love God. Why? Because God is. And he said, love yourself. Why? Because I am. We are the I ams that God is. He said, in so doing, love your neighbor, love all humanity as yourself. Why? Because humanity is yourself, your one self. Therein lies your peace. Look, therein lies your health. Therein lies your sanity. Therein lies your feelings and your emotions. Everything will line up in your life when we allow this reality to harmonize in us. When we allow this reality to become our reality. Then you will experience what? I have need of nothing. Because you realize you have everything. You are everything. And everything is you. And oh my God, you say, what kind of love is this? How sweet it is to be loved by love. To be loved by him. Or her, or it. So God is our goal. And forgiveness is the means. It's the only means. God is our goal. God is our awareness. God is our consciousness. God is our very life. And forgiveness is the way by which our minds return to him. Finally. 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 And we realize that this return journey is without a distance, because we realize that we never left the heart of God. That we were abiding in the secret place all the time. We was resting in God all the time. I hope you're getting this, and I know you are. I am. Forgiveness is the means by which our minds return to him at last. When I first got into the course, one of the first books I read that was based on the course was written by one of the highly known spiritual teachers called, and Course in Miracle teacher. His name is Gary Renard. You probably heard that name if you're a course student. Gary Renard. And he wrote this book that is now, I think, he's got a trilogy, or he may have written 4 in the series. The book is called The Disappearance of the Universe. The Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard. Straight talk about illusions, past lives, religion, sex, politics, and the miracle of forgiveness. And I've read all of his books. In fact, I'm waiting for the next one to hit the press. See what Art and Purser says. But anyway, this was the first book that I wrote that was written by a course teacher. Great book. It really helps you understand the course from a different perspective. It's just a different learning modality that he brings, a unique way of teaching the course. But on page 157 of this book, he highlights this line in the book, and I want to read it because it really goes hand in hand with what we're talking about here today. And it really can help me bring this home. Bring it on home, Oliver. So he says, one of the goals of the course. It says one of the goals. One of the goals of the course is to train your mind. Train your mind. It's not talking about the mind of Christ, because the mind of Christ is perfect. It needs no training. But he's talking about the mind that you made. All the made up stuff that we made up. Just the way we trained our mind in the ways and practices of the ego thought system. It says we need to train our minds in true perception. Train our mind in the thought spirit, in the thought system of spirit, of oneness. It says one of the goals of the course is to train your mind so the time will come when, instead of judging automatically, so an untrained mind judges automatically. It must judge. That's why we still have forgiveness work to do. Anytime you judge, there needs to be forgiveness. It says the untrained mind automatically judges. That's the way it's trained. Why? Because it's afraid. It's motivated by fear. It is built with the idea of fear, sin, consciousness, and guilt. So it automatically judges everything. It's afraid. Our false self is afraid. Our personal self is afraid. The self we made is afraid. I hear you, Heidi. So it says the goal of the course, or one of the goals of the course, is to train your mind so that the time will come when, instead of judging automatically, you will forgive automatically. That's the goal. And it's through the practicing of forgiveness that we bring this mind that appears to be separate back into the fold. See, it's just part of us that's still afraid. This is part of us that still feel like we're separate. It's just part of us that still feel like we're so attached to this world, so attached to this body, so attached to the ideas of this world. And that's where all your anxiety, that's where all your fear is coming from. That's where all your suffering comes from. That's where all sickness and disease and lack and poverty and all unloving acts come from. It comes from an idea, a false idea about yourself. And because of that, and because we're still here, and we have to practice, part of the renewing and part of the training, part of the miracle is the practice of forgiveness. It is the most powerful practice you could ever engage in. It is the greatest gift that we have here. We don't need it in the complete and awakening realization. In fact, even while you're here, when you have matured to the place where you now become the judgeless one, when you no longer judge, when you no longer see through the eyes of separation, you walk in the awareness that there's nothing to forgive. So nothing that anyone can do can cause you to judge. Why would you judge an illusion? Why would you judge? It's like, why would you try to put clothes on a shadow? To judge is like trying to put clothes on a shadow. Your shadow. You would think that person was crazy. If they reached down to the ground and saw their shadow and try to put a jacket on him or a coat or a scarf or some tennis shoes, you think they are go out of their minds. But that's what the Course says. We have entered into a state of insanity. When we try to re-identify ourselves as something that God did not create. That's why these ideas that have been passed down and are still being perpetuated, especially in the religious community, calling people this and that, judging people for what they do or say or don't do or say, all of this, it is running its course. But all of that's going to come to a screeching halt at some point. It is. That's why we here at Truly Foundation, we teach advanced spirituality. We teach the recognition of God is, therefore I am, where there is no judgment. There's only love. We teach only love, for this is who we are. We teach only light, for we are the light of the world. We teach that sin is not real. There is no sin. There is no separation. There is no fall. All these labels that the world put on us, you're this, you're that. All of the isms and schisms that happen through the lens of separation. All the inequality. All of the foolish wranglings. All of the political, what they call it, all the unprecedented political folly that has been on display more so than ever before. That's promoting division, separation, inequality. It's all coming to an end. And the moment that you let it go, release it, forgive it, release it. Forgiveness is releasing. It's the day that you will start. It's the day that you will stop suffering. It's the day that you will stop wallowing in guilt and sin consciousness and fear. When you see the reality of the oneness of humanity, it's not going to come any other way. It's not going to come through corporate America. It's not going to come through guns and bullets. It's not going to come through a revolution. No, it's going to come through a resolution where we resolve ourselves to the truth that is true always. It's not going to come through nuclear proliferation. That's only part of the fear. It's not going to come through reparations. It's not coming that way. We can give you all the money in the world, and if you don't know who you are, you won't be happy. Ask the people that got it. More of it than they can shake a stick at. More of it than they can live 10 lifetimes. But they'll tell you, if their mind is not at peace, they will take that money and buy it if they could. But you cannot buy this. You already have it. But it's only going to come. It's only going to, like it said here, it's says it right in the first word. The way to experience love is through forgiveness here. That's it. It's it. God set it up that way. We can't change it. It's the only way. So lay down your ideas, lay down your plowsheds, lay down your guns and your bullets and your weapons and your armament. Lay down your superiority complex. Lay down your nationalism complexes. Lay them down. They're only bringing you pain and suffering. Lay down your identity and your allegiance to a race or to a nation or to your gender, to your religious ideas. Lay them down. That is what's causing the pain in your life. That is what causing you to feel the way that you do. That's what causing you to not be able to sleep at night. Lay them down or forgive. That's all it is. It's that simple. When you have heard what has been shared here and what's been shared in all the other 200 and something workbook lessons, that you know that if this is the real deal, oh my God, we have made such a huge mistake. That's what the ego tell you. Oh, you done made a huge mistake. And so we feel guilty about that. And we fear of what's in the future. We have anxiety about the future. That's where it comes from. So we're still caught up in that cycle of wrong thinking, wrong perception, which leads to what? Wrong action, which leads to what? Results that we don't like, experiences that we don't like. And the young people that are coming up in our world that is not exposed and being exposed to these realities, they can't make it past their 20s or 30s because life becomes so confusing to them that they think the only way out is to take their life and others. What's at the root of that? Identification. They don't know who they are. And so we should be about. We should take the big megaphone and be about sharing. That's why I got this big megaphone. That's why I'm on this platform. Calling all humanity to return to love. For love is all there is. Love is who you are. And so I'm going to end today's session with a prayer or declaration that's here at the bottom of the workbook lesson 256. And it goes like this. And so, or in conclusion, our Father, our Creator, our source. It's not mine, yours, different one. No, it's only the one. Our oneness. Would we come to you or come to this reality in your appointed way? What is your appointed way? Through forgiveness. I'm saying it's not going to go away. That is the only way out, guys. And forgiveness is merely giving up the falsity, this false self. Here it is, this section that says, what is forgiveness? It says, forgiveness recognizes that what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. It has not occurred. It does not pardon sins as we are taught in the world. And the world system is built on that. It does not pardon sin. Forgiveness, the Jesus brand and the Course's brand of forgiveness, it doesn't pardon sin. Why? As though sin is real. It says it sees there is none. There is no sin. It says, and in that view, or in this point of view, in this God view, in this love view, he say, and in that view are all your seemingly sins are forgiven. Seemingly sins, because it's going to come here and tell you that there is none. It's already said there is none. So your seemingly sin are forgiven. In other words, they're illusions. God not even aware of it. Love's not even aware of it. Only your separated self is. It says, what is sin except a false idea? It's not even real. It's a false idea about you and all humanity. It's a false idea about God's creation. It's a false idea about the I am, that which is God created. It's really a false idea about God. Because remember, you and God are one. So it's a false idea. It's a lie. And we see how the lie can work in a separated world. That's what's been perpetrated here front and center recently in a big way. And people are gullible. What is sin except a false idea about God's Son, or about God's creation, or really about God? It's a false idea. So it's an illusion. It's not a sin. We don't take it serious. Oh, I just fell asleep. We can say it that way. I just fell asleep, forgot who I was. When I wake up, I wake up. I recognize who I am. And all that happened when I was asleep. It didn't even happen. All the shooting and killing and drugging and stealing and all of the unloving acts that's been recorded in history, it didn't even happen. You say, well, what about all those people what about them? You saying, what about their bodies? Because the person wants the body. See? So it really didn't happen. I told you it was like going to a movie. And that's why Gary's book is called The Disappearance of This Universe, the disappearance of this dream-like world, because it eventually is going to disappear when we wake up. It would no longer be in our awareness, in our consciousness. Why? Because it was just a dream. Roll, roll, roll your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. See, that's some reality to that. So it is just a made-up idea about who we are. Even the idea of sin is a made-up idea about humanity in the dream. Forgiveness merely sees its falsity. See, forgiveness sees the falsity in the belief in sin, separation, guilt, and fear. And therefore lets it go. That's what forgiveness is. It's just a letting go. It doesn't do anything. You just let it go. Just let it go. What grievances are you holding? Just let them go. What are you upset about? Just let it go. What are you holding on to in your thought life that has anything to do with the past? You're holding on to an illusion. Let it go. And what is left is what the will of God. What is left is what love only. What is left is your healing, your deliverance. What is left is the miracle. That's why I call it Course in Miracle. Just that simple. You don't have to take anybody any money. You don't have to go to anybody's services. You don't have to do anything but just let it go. All the rituals, all the phylacteries, all of the events, all of the stuff that we do to try to feel good about ourselves, to try to feel good about God. All this stuff that we go through, all of the effort, all of the energy, all of the money, all of the setups and all of the ideas. You don't have to do any of that if you don't want to. But guess what? If you want to, you can. They don't make a difference in the sense that God is, therefore I am. That's why it doesn't make a difference. God is all comforting. You are is all encompassing. So we can relax. We can take a exhale. We can relieve the pressure. We can relieve the heavy burdens. That's what Jesus meant when he said, what? My yoke is easy. And my burden is light. And not light, like doesn't have weight, doesn't have pressure. He said, my yoke is easy, and my message, that word burden is, my message is light, L-I-G-H-T. And this is a message of light that we're sharing today. So there is no burdens. There is no hardship. There's no problem, man. All is well when you walk in this awareness. He says, forgiveness merely sees the falsity and therefore lets it go. What then is free to take its place is now the will of God. Paragraph 4 says, forgiveness, on the other hand, it is still and it is quiet and it does nothing. Forgiveness really does nothing. It's effortless when you let it go. It does nothing. Because what you were holding on to was nothing. So it does nothing. You see the power of forgiveness? It does nothing. It does nothing. However, unforgiveness, it does everything. It's frantic. And the first thing that unforgiveness does is it judges. It says, he that is unforgiving must judge. But it says, forgiveness does nothing. It offends no aspect of reality, nor does it twist any appearance to his own liking. But it merely looks and waits and judges not. When you become mature in forgiving, when you have let go all that you have held against yourself or others, it says you would merely look and wait and judge not. It says, he who would not forgive must judge, for he must justify his failure to forgive. But he who would forgive himself, forgiveness is about yourself. Let yourself go. Let yourself out of the cage and out of the jail that you put yourself in through the belief in separation. He said, but he who would forgive himself must learn to welcome truth exactly as it is and not make it up, but we accept it exactly as it is. That's why, again, we say God is, and we cease to speak. That means that we're accepting the truth exactly like it is. That's why we say I am, and there's no other necessity for any other words. Why? Because we're accepting the truth exactly as it is. We're accepting ourselves exactly as God created us in oneness. And so, in conclusion, our Father, we will come to you in your appointed way. Forgiveness. Can't come any other way. Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. He exemplified forgiveness. He showed us how it's done. Father, I forgive them for what? They ain't done nothing. And they don't know what they're doing. He showed us in the most extreme way. It wasn't required of him to go through that. He chose to. It's not required of you to be having this experience. You chose to. And now you have to forgive it. You have to let it go. He says, we have no goal except to hear your voice, or the voice that speaks for you. And we talked about that in previous lessons. We're not talking about an audible voice or words. We're talking about the voice of God is the remembrance of God that came with you into the dream. The remembrance of God. It's in all of us. It's in every human being. But we have placed blocks and veils and coverings to try to cover up the remembrance. And that's what this course is about. It's about removing the blocks to the awareness that love is all there is. So we have no goal except to hear or to remember and find the way. Forgiveness. Your sacred word. What is God's sacred word? He's not talking about a written word. Your sacred reality has pointed out to us. I'm pointing out to you today the truth. That is true always. I'm pointing out to you today this sacred words. I am your temporary guide, but there is the remembrance of God in you that is permanent. That's your permanent guide. I'm pointing to your permanent guide. And so it is. That is our lesson for today. It was lengthy, but it's going to help someone. It's going to help someone to be their own savior, to wake them up from their insanity. So go forth in the world of peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast to that which is good. Render to no man evil for evil. Strengthen those that are faint in heart. Help the afflicted. Honor all men. Love and serve this reality. Rejoicing in the power that we all share. Thank you so much. We'll be back on tomorrow with lesson 257. This is Oliver Blue saying what? Truly, the real you loves you, because the real you is love. Bye-bye.